We are live. We are live wired. Hello, TikTok. No hello for YouTube today because I forgot to charge my other device. But hey, I was busy doing things all morning. I was doing the editing of the third propaganda class that we had last week. So after the class, I edit it, make it look all nice. And then for future members of my homeschool community, Homeschools Connected, when they sign up, they get full access to the propaganda classes that I already have taught. And for those of you not aware, I have been teaching a class called Foundations of Propaganda for elementary school and middle school level learners using the Cubs to Bears children book series, which I wrote. Books on free speech, books on the Second Amendment. This past class I used Operation Mockingbird and the Church Committee, which is living history about the congressionally documented history of fake news. But today we're going to talk about history in homeschool and history in public school, because over the last few days I've been doing a deep dive into the manner in which big tax-exempt foundations leverage control of their money to essentially rewrite history. And there's a whole history of that, so to speak. So people are pulling their children out of public schools in droves. I can't tell you, every day someone gives me a new horror story. I can't tell you how many parents are coming up to me upset with what's been happening in the school system, where mask, no mask, mask, no mask, children not allowed to be children, being told that they can't go near their friends, that if they go near their friends, somehow there's this invisible threat, and it's a threat to their friends and their family, right? They could bring it home and it could hurt grandma. And I mean, the psychological repercussions of that have to be intense. But this is nothing new with the schooling system. It's the same thing that happens with the drills they do, right? Like you hear about the Columbine type of incidents, and so in every school around the country, they do these drills, and a siren goes off, and the children shut the door to their classroom, and they throw desks up against the doors, and they all go to the corner of the room, and they just huddle down and wait in terror, hoping that something horrible doesn't happen to them. And what a terrible lesson to teach young children, which is why I wrote the book, The Right to Bear Arms, because you do not have to be defenseless. You do not have to be helpless in this world. That's what the system wants us to be. And this goes back generations. If you think about the Cold War and everything that happened with duck and cover, right? Where, think about growing up when you'd be in a classroom and all of a sudden an alarm would go off. An alarm would go off, and they'd say, potentially, that a foreign nation is flying a jet over the school and dropping a nuclear war. I mean, right? A warhead. I mean, and they say, oh, well, what you're going to do is just hide under the desk. So what they're doing is creating generational trauma. And of course, with that type of conditioning, you get a population that will very willingly support the military-industrial complex, that will very willingly support American imperialism, right? American modern colonialism, for all you trolls who don't understand much about the world, right? So they use this fear, this conditioning in the schools to get people to support militaristic activities throughout the world, and they did that for a very long time. But even the way history is taught, it's always taught in schools to further whatever the political agenda of that day is. Now, understand that the political agenda, I'm not talking about the politicians. I'm talking about the agendas coming from the people paying the politicians, and we'll talk about that. But if you take Christopher Columbus as an example, and it's such a great example because when I grew up, Christopher Columbus was the hero, right? When I was a child, it was Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492. We have this holiday. We celebrate Christopher Columbus. He was a great man. And then by the time I graduated high school, the narrative had shifted. And the narrative had shifted to Christopher Columbus was a conqueror. He was the villain. He had committed horrible crimes against humanity and atrocities. Now, I'm not pointing to either one here. Obviously, I have my opinion. I'm not saying he's the good guy. I'm not saying he's the bad guy. What I'm saying, for the point of what I'm talking about, is that the reason the narrative changed is to fit the political agenda of the day. Because when I was a child, America was still trying to get the Americans to support that American imperialism, right? That, that we should be all over the world with the military and conquering foreign countries, right? And that's a heroic thing. We're spreading freedom and democracy, right? That narrative, Columbus fit that. Well, over the last 20 years, the objective of the controlling powers that be has been to flood countries like the United States of America, like England, so-called first world countries, with populations from the third world. So in order to do that, they wanted to convince the local populations that, you don't really have a right to be here, fruit from the poisonous tree, that this really isn't your land, and who are you not to share this land with people from all over the rest of the world. And there are socioeconomic or macroeconomic reasons in which these controllers want to flood the world with, want to flood the so-called first world with people from third world countries. The primary reason for that, one, they're trying to erode the roots of each country so that they could spread globalism, right? So that countries surrender their sovereignty to globalist organizations like the United Nations. But two, there has been an agenda for a long time in which they promote promiscuity and this type of activity, and they promote the pushing back of having families, right? Don't get married young. If you're a woman, marriage is oppression, right? You don't want to get married. What you want to do to not be oppressed is take on $100,000 of student loan debts, work for a corporate boss that cares nothing about you, don't have children until you're 35. Well, they've been very successful with that agenda for a long time. And there's a long history of this, the history of a word you're not supposed to say, but the type of thing that, the type of thing that me and Mr. Mustache was doing in Germany is the same type of thing that these so-called controllers, right? He went about it in a different way, but they have been running out these types of depopulation programs for a very long time, right? So they get people to push back having children, but one of the repercussions of that is they've been so successful at it that when you look at the population of a country, in a healthy country, the way it should be is a pyramid, right? So at the top of the pyramid, there should be old people, right? When you talk about population by age, there should be a lot less people who are 90 years old than there are people that are 70 years old. And there should be less people that are 70 years old than there are people that are 50 years old. And there should be less people that are 50 years old than there are people that are 30 years old. And there should be less people that are 30 years old than there are newborn babies, right? So this is what the age pyramid should look like. But because they've been so successful in their program to lower the population, there are actually, there are larger populations, or as large populations as baby boomers as there are of the younger generations. And that's a problem when you need labor, right? So one of the reasons the narrative of Columbus changed is because over the last 20 years, they knew they would have to flood the so-called first world with people from other countries because they needed the labor. They needed the manual labor in these countries, right? Because when you don't have enough young people, you don't have people to do jobs. So the narratives that are taught in public schools are designed to fit. And by the way, I am going to go back and read through all your comments and answer your questions, but I want to get through this because this is very powerful stuff. So the narratives in public schools that are taught that brainwash the people that come in here and try to troll me, these narratives are designed to get the population to support whatever the political agenda of the day might be. So the question is, how do they do this? Well, this is where the real gravy, if that wasn't enough gravy for you, by the way, which that was phenomenal gravy, I might add. But now we're going to get into the real historical gravy. Marie and Princess is the best. Don't bother. None of them have been questioned. Oh, okay. All right. So this is where we get into the real gravy. So how do they alter history? How do the winners rewrite history? And if you don't think the winners write history, you haven't been paying attention. But how do the winners rewrite history so that it fits the political narrative, the political agenda of whatever's being taught in the present day world? Well, in the 1950s, there is a very unspoken about congressional committee that was put together called the Congressional Reese Committee. And this committee was put together to investigate American tax-exempt foundations to find out if they have been engaging in un-American activities. And the way, so Norman Dodd was in charge of this investigation. It was the Reese Committee, so Senator Carol Reese, and Norman Dodd, who was another senator from, I think, Idaho, was the lead investigator. And he identified un-American activities as any activities by tax-exempt foundations which seeked to change American policy in unconstitutional means, right? So basically he said that the founders set up the Constitution, and that was the way laws were supposed to be made, right? And any way that laws or control is being leveraged that are outside of those constitutional means, he said were un-American. So that was his definition. This was in the 1950s. So he goes up to the Ford Foundation. And by the way, I'm teaching all this stuff to the children, the students in my homeschool community, which is $10 a month. So he went to the Ford Foundation and he said, this is what we're investigating. And the president of the Ford Foundation told him point blank, he said, "What are you doing here?" He said, "Well, we have been using our money in an attempt to merge America with the Soviet Union." And he said, "Come again?" And the president of the Ford Foundation said, "This was our directive coming from the White House." Okay? So this is what he said to him. So, okay, fair enough. Well, he then gets in contact with the Carnegie Foundation, and Norman Dodd gets access. The heads of the Carnegie Foundation, they were open about it. They said, "We'll give you access to our corporate minutes." And, as Norman Dodd says, they probably weren't aware what was in these corporate minutes dating back to the early 1900s. So Norman Dodd and a very brave woman, Catherine Casey, get access to the corporate minutes. These are like the notes from the Carnegie Foundation dating back to the early 1900s. And what they found was in the early 1900s that the Carnegie Foundation and the Ford Foundation had been colluding, so to speak, to get America to adopt a more militaristic mindset, the people of America, in preparation of what would be World War I, right? So if you don't think these wars, right, if the financing behind these wars don't try to cook these things up years in advance, if you think that World War I started because some archduke was killed halfway around the world that no one cares about, you're wrong. So they had started a policy in which they were trying to make Americans embrace a more militaristic mindset a few years before World War I. World War I takes place, that's history. All right, the rest is history, yada, yada, yada. And after World War I, the Carnegie Foundation, the Ford Foundation, contact the Rockefeller Foundation, and they get together and they say, how do we prevent Americans from reverting back to a pre-World War I mindset? How do we keep them within this militaristic mindset? Because they had, in the corporate notes, it says, militarism is the best way to control a country. So they determined, all right, well, the best way to do that would be to take over the education system and specifically to take over the way that history is understood in America and the way that history is taught. So this was their plan. So they approached the 4 leading historians in the United States of America and they said, are you willing, and I'm sure they, they can be enticing, are you willing to alter the way that you teach history in that you propagate history? And the 4 leading historians in the United States of America all said, absolutely not. So people did have values at one time. They said, absolutely not, we won't do that. They said, okay, back to the drawing board. So then the the Carnegie Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, got together with the Guggenheim Foundation. And they gave out $400,000 in fellowships or grants, which is a tremendous amount of money in that day. Tremendous amount of money. And they handpicked 20 college students across America. They did their research, and they handpicked 20 college students across America. And they flew them out to London, and they formed fellowships with them, and they said, you know how in the Bible, the devil lured Jesus out to the desert and offered him the world? Well, they lured these 20 college students out to London, and they said, this is what we want you to do for us, and we'll give you the world. And sure enough, in the next 10 to 15 years, those 20 college students would become the primary board members of the American Historical Association. What does the American Historical Association do? They are in charge with the textbooks in the United States of America, what should go into the textbooks, and best practices, right? So what are best practices? Well, if you're not teaching this, it's because it's some type of ism, right? Or if you're teaching this history, it's because it's ism, right? Or obic, right? Best practices. And they make the textbooks, right? And then they're in charge of determining how the teachers are educated, right? Future history teachers are educated as they come up through the education system, right? So I got a bachelor's in history education. I came up through this Rockefeller education system. Now I broke free from it. I'm their worst nightmare, right? So this is how they rewrite history. They control the authoritative bodies. Does this remind you of anything? Like what might be happening with certain scientific narratives in the United States of America? They control the scientific authorities. They control the way the future scientists are educated in the school system. The future teachers of history are educated in the school system. So they believe it to be true. They control the textbooks, right? And with that, they are able to leverage control to alter science, to alter history. And that is the history that is being taught in schools right now. Now, in my private homeschool community, classicallearner.com, Homeschools Connected, I'm currently teaching a class called Foundations of Propaganda for elementary and middle school level students, in which we are learning how music alters emotions, how social shame is used to get people to give up their rights, how lies are built on top of partial truths, how narratives are created around these lies or these partial truths, and they're used to get people to do what they want them to do. Right? So I'm teaching a class, Foundations of Propaganda, using the right to bear arms, free speech, social media, beep, and I can't say that word apparently, social media, beep, and the First Amendment, which are books that I wrote, Operation Mockingbird and the Church Committee, which is a book that I wrote myself. And I'm teaching children to identify propaganda from a very young age. We are currently studying the media industrial complex. We started that study. After we study the media industrial complex, we will be studying the medical industrial complex. After we study the medical, and by the way, we'll be teaching our students how to track the money, how to go to opensecrets.org and actually track the money so that you can learn how money is used to leverage control over these institutions. Children will study the revolving door of bureaucrats that are the head of institutions like the CDC, and then they get jobs for companies like Pfizer. You guys get it, right? After we study the medical industrial complex, we will be studying the military industrial complex. And we'll be reading books like Smedley Butler, who was the most decorated soldier in American history upon his death, who outlined the military industrial complex in great detail. So this is what our students are studying. We're doing it from the grassroots level. We've been building everything out. It's the third year of what we're doing. And you can find it at www.classicallearner.com. It's called Homeschools Connected. And with the promotion code together, it is $10 a month. And the best part about that $10 a month, which is less than the cost of a Netflix subscription. So you could You could sit your child in front of Netflix and let them be propagandized, or for less than the cost of a Netflix subscription, you can sign up for Homeschools Connected, teach your children to identify propaganda, understand the military-industrial complex, understand the medical-industrial complex, understand the military-industrial complex, and give them insights into institutions that will literally, these lessons will stay with your children for the rest of their lives. That is www.classicallearner.com. When you get to the website, you'll see Homeschools Connected. Homeschools Connected, follow the links, and use the promotion code TOGETHER. It's $10 a month. I do not charge you for a year. So I don't say $10 a month, but you have to pay for a year up front. No, it's literally $10 a month. You don't have to pay for a year up front. You could drop it. So if you don't like it, you're out $10 after 1 month. But everyone who's joining is staying. It has been such a phenomenal success what we're doing. And I hope that all of you want to be a part of it. So I'm going to open the floor up. If you guys have any questions, let me know now, and I am going to go back through what you guys were saying. I've been getting attacked by so many trolls lately that I'm just getting through my rant. And then when I'm done with my rant, then I go back through the comments, answer any questions you have. Because if I start interacting with the trolls, they'll derail what I want to say. And, they're just not worth it. They're not worth it. Where did I study? I have a bachelor's degree in history education from Cortland University, and I have a master's degree in special education from Queens College. I'm also the founder of the Classical Learner Homeschooling Company. I worked for about 8 years in the field of education, and I've published 7 books, including an Amazon #1 bestseller. I think your message would come across clearer if you didn't yell. Yeah, that's just how I speak. So I could try to change who I am or how I speak, but I've been talking this way my whole life, and I'm just gonna keep doing that. Yeah, Marine Princess. If she decides anyone gets blocked, that's no questions asked. That's her authority. That's not even my authority. If Marine Princess decides someone's gone, they're gone. This guy called me an idiot. Definitely blocked. I mean, why do people think it's okay to talk to other people that way? It's really mind-boggling to me. Like, I never go on someone's chat and call them a term. And these are like internet tough guys. So if they met me in public, they would. Anyway. It's really disgraceful behavior. You'll get these people and they'll come on here and they'll be they say really horrible things. I have big following. I probably through all my accounts, I have probably I don't know, probably 165, 170,000 followers. And you get some of these trolls and the things they say, it's they're such they're you could literally, there's demons coming out of them. The way they talk to people I never would talk to people that way. I can't wait to get into your community and start learning and homeschooling my children. And I'm more than happy to have you. And it's a great community of people like Marine Princess and homeschool parents that we're really working together to, on the fly, figure out all the best ways to educate children. And I'm spearheading that, but there's so much wisdom between myself and the members, the homeschool parents in my community, that it really is. It's a very valuable thing. Block all the trolls, absolutely. It's nice learning from someone speaking truth. Keep doing it. Knowledge is power. Mini Speaker, thanks for sending me I don't know how much money that is, but thank you for sending it to me. I really appreciate that. We used to be friends on here, veteran here, homeschooling mama as well. Yes, the unclothed. How you doing? His story, absolutely. Yeah, it's just what happens on social media is just modern book burning. Or it's like basically like they try to cut people's tongue out because they don't want to hear what they have to say. Because nothing says you're right like having to silence people who disagree with you. It doesn't sound like you're learning anything. It sounds like you're just believing conspiracies. Well, given that my entire talk I was citing the congressional report from a congressional investigation by the Reese Committee, you could go read that report for yourself. So obviously, I was quoting a primary document, right? So, you know, and I'm a historian, by the way. I have a bachelor's degree in history education. Are you a historian? I didn't think so. Right, how many books are banned in schools? Most of the good ones. Yeah, so my Foundations of Propaganda class is for elementary and middle school level learners. There have been children that are slightly younger than elementary school that have been sitting and listening, and from what I'm told, they're enjoying the class and their parents are, I'm happy they're participating, but I designed it. I designed it for elementary and middle school. But there is leadway for even a high school student could watch it and they'll learn more about propaganda than they would ever learn in any high school class. I just kind of, I'm using kid-friendly language. I'm basically acting out pretty intricate plays, right? I'm doing narratives where I'm Sherlock Bear, who's a reference to Sherlock Holmes, and I'm having a conversation with a Red Pill Rooster, who is a news rooster. He's our news roosters in the universe I've created, and he's just waking up to the world. So Sherlock Bear is showing him, look, this, and I pull up an actual evidence board, and I'm saying, look at the evidence. This was the money that the other news roosters took from Charisma Cat, who's our primary villain. So, like, that's how I'm teaching. So it's child-friendly, but the lessons are actually very appropriate. Little Bear Workshop, thank you for that, crushing. The lessons are very appropriate for even young children. Oh, yeah, second grade's very appropriate. This guy is legitimate, the opposite of the public school indoctrination system. Mad respect for his efforts. Thank you so much. Yeah, classicallearner.com. Homeschools Connected. Sometimes when I'm going through the chat, it jumps on me. I don't know why it jumps, but I lose my spot. And some homeschool questions, so I want to... We teach our children how to learn. We don't sit them and indoctrinate them. So that's a great point. So in public schools, children are taught memorization. So we've been talking about history. Well, in history, they memorize that Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492. They're told that he cut off some arms and he's a bad guy. But by the way, for the record, if you wanted my opinion, I don't think he's a good guy. That's my opinion on him. But that wasn't the point of my talk. And if I give my opinion, then everyone loses in the shuffle the point of how history is taught. Right? The point was how it's taught and how it's manipulated, not my opinion. Like, yeah, everyone has their opinion. Right? I don't think Columbus was a good guy. But so like when children learn the Civil War, they're told like memorize this battle date, this historical figure, who won, and now you know history. No, when they study history, they should read the primary writings of Robert E. Lee, and Ulysses S. Grant, right? The Southern general and the Northern general. And then they should formulate their own opinion or their own theory of what actually happened. Because history, it's always evolving, right? Like, you're always learning, taking on more information. And, like, the best way to learn it is just to go through the documents and use your discernment. And that doesn't mean you're right all the time. But this authoritative model of history of this is what happened, no, that's what the people who are in power want you to think happened, because then they can mold what you think happened to form public policy as it is today, right? So, like, if they convince a certain segment of the population you are a victim and other people who look differently than you owe you things, and they can convince another segment of the population that you are an oppressor and that you owe people things, then you can get them to alter public policy based on that, right? Or like the example I gave before, if you can get the population to accept that they don't have a rightful claim to this land, so who are you to say that people from other countries can't come here? You can replace the local population with people who come from countries that support more statist ideologies, and then you can get them to vote for those statist ideologies, increase your power, increase your wealth, increase your influence, and this is modern warfare. This is how you conquer countries, right? This is modern colonialism, modern imperialism, and we are being targeted with it through the education system. It's through John F. Kennedy gave his favorite speech on secret societies, right? And I forget exactly what he said, but this is John F. Kennedy. Go listen to his speech. We face an enemy whose primary weapon is covert means, who does not wish to fight us directly but through subversion, right? Go listen to, after this, YouTube, John F. Kennedy secret society speech. This is what he's talking about. You're being attacked through covert means, through subversion, through infiltration, right? Oh, I'm sorry, trolls. Is John F. Kennedy not a good source? You just believe conspiracy theories. JFK, John F. Kennedy is not a good source. Or Lyndon B. Johnson. Lyndon B. Johnson and his not Lyndon B. Johnson. Big mix-up. Dwight Eisenhower, General Dwight Eisenhower, who became President Dwight Eisenhower, in his farewell address, the last thing he said to the American public, what he wanted them to take from his time in public service as a World War II hero, as a President of the United States, was beware of the military-industrial complex, and that's the one people know about. And then his second warning was, be aware of the information-industrial complex. He was warning about the education system. He was warning about propaganda, information in the public sphere. Oh, I'm sorry, trolls. Is John F. Kennedy and Dwight Eisenhower, are they not good sources? Is the Congressional Reese Committee not a good source? When I quote the Congressional Church Committee and the official congressional investigation into the CIA financing corporate media, is that not a good source? Or is a good source only what your textbook tells you? Because if that's the case, I have to warn you, you may be brainwashed. You might want to listen. As a previous homeschool child, would you incorporate socialization? Yes. So in our homeschools, we treat socialization the same way we treat math and science. So socialization is a priority. So you have to take your child to the park. You set your schedule, maybe once or twice a week. You have to set up a play date, maybe once or twice a week. You have to sign your children up for a soccer team, a karate team, a local theater. Take your child to a gymnastics class every Friday. Take your child to a church group every Sunday where they play with other children. It can look however you want it to look, but you have to make sure that they're getting out into the world and socializing. And then you could also look for Facebook co-ops. So join a co-op of other homeschool families in your area. There's multiple means to find other homeschool families in your area. You could call local museums and say, hey, are you hosting museums, zoos, aquariums? Are you hosting any homeschool events? Usually they'll say, oh, actually we're having one next month. You go to that event, you network, you meet other homeschool parents in your area, and then you say, hey, why don't we get together and start teaching the children together every Tuesday, whatever it might be. So yes, socialization is a priority. Right. Public schools tell children what to think. We show our children how to think. So even in the second propaganda class, the second one, yes, that I taught, I had children do an investigation. So I used the Right to Bear Arms book, right? So this is a perfect example of how to think. So in the book, Charisma Cat attacks a bunny rabbit, and the children are shown a picture of a bunny rabbit with 3 claw marks, and there's paw prints walking away from the bunny rabbit. And obviously, Charisma Cat has the news roosters report that the bears committed this attack. So at the end of the lesson, I say, okay, what did the news roosters tell us about the rabbit attack? And the children said that the bears attacked a rabbit. I said, okay, well, did they show us any evidence? And the children thought about it. No. All right, well, do we have any evidence? Oh, yes, we do. Well, so yes, we have the picture of the crime scene. So I show them the picture, and I say, okay, what evidence can we use to maybe do an investigation? And they eventually pointed at the paw prints. I said, the paw prints, now that's good. So then I pulled up a picture of a bear paw print, because the news rooster said it was the bear. I said, how many fingers does the paw print next to the cat have? And they counted them, 1, 2, 3, 4 fingers. How many fingers does the paw print next to the bear? How many fingers does a paw print of a bear have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do you still think the bear committed the attack? No. So I said, who might have committed the attack? And one of the children said, Charisma Cat. So I pull up a cat paw, and I say, all right, now count the fingers on a cat paw. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I say, okay, so a cat paw has 4 fingerprints. How many fingerprints are on our crime scene paw print? 1, 2, 3, 4. So I say, who do you think committed the crime? Charisma Cat. I say, okay, do you know Charisma Cat committed the crime? Yes. I said, do you know they committed the crime? Well, how do you know? Well, the paw print, I say, are there other animals that also have paws with 4 fingers? I go, oh yeah. I say, okay, so do we know for a fact, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that it was Charisma Cat? No. So, can we say with a high degree of certainty that we suspect it was Charisma Cat? Yes. Right? She had her news roosters report it was the bears when it wasn't. Right? She had been trying. She had a motive because she had been trying to get the bears to give up their arms all book. So I could say we could suspect it was Charisma Cat, but we don't know for sure. And we have to keep our mind open to new information because we might get new information that suggests it was another animal. Right? So we're teaching them to always have caution. Have caution in drawing conclusions, to always keep their mind open to new information, and to think critically about the world. And that's my Foundations of Propaganda class that I'm teaching the children right now. How do you join? Go to www.classicallearner.com. It's Homeschools Connected. You'll see Homeschools Connected. Follow the links and use the promotion code TOGETHER. It is $10 a month, and you could drop it at any time. Glad I found you on here. I have 3 little ones. I'll be learning with them. That's awesome. Blessings. Yes, blessings to you. The first people ask me is if I'm vaccinated. I'm like, oh, I said the bad word. In what world is this okay? Right. In what world is it okay for anyone to ask me about my personal health choices, right? How did I decide to learn about propaganda? Well, I have a bachelor's degree in history education. And the reason I pursued that is because I was always interested in history, and it kind of goes hand in hand. When you start studying history, you start studying the history of propaganda, right? And then I started studying that topic, and like it's like once you start studying that, you start to pull the threads of, okay, all these historical narratives that were actually propaganda, and they're not true. And to me, it's like something I've been obsessed with for a long time. So you're awesome. How do I find your books? ClassicalLearner.com. When you go there, you'll see Cubs to Bears books. My first name is Brett. My last name is Pike. Brett Pike. Cortland University, or SUNY Cortland as it's known. For the record, SUNY stands for the State University. So Cortland University. State University of New York. I studied special education as well, learned so much. Love the energy, thank you. Yes, freedom requires personal responsibility, exactly. Unschooling's the best, absolutely. Yeah, so unschooling is the most powerful form. I actually kind of want to talk about it tomorrow. All right, I'm going to do a talk on unschooling tomorrow. I'm going to give you a cliffhanger on that because I did a consultation with the dad this morning, and we are doing some really cool unschooling work. So much that I want to devote a whole stream to that. So I'll talk about that tomorrow. But unschooling is the most powerful form of education. Essentially, unschooling is following the interest of your child, right? Deviating from that we have to learn this. No, follow the interest of your child and use the interest of your child to embed the lessons you kind of want them to learn. So they don't even have to realize you're teaching them what you want them to learn. You're following their interest. You know, if, for example, like I worked with a child that loves, his dad was a carpenter, so he loved to build. We had him building benches, donating a bench to the local church, putting up flyers, offering to build benches for other people at charge, right? And this is the 5-year-old, right? So like unschooling is the most powerful form of education, right? And with that, right, with building benches, you could teach him math, carpentry, like there's so much you can learn. A big branch just fell next to me. So much you could learn. Uncloth said, parents being the sole influence of their children. You just gave me a great idea. That's correct, but you spelled soul wrong. I would have spelled soul. Parents should be the SOUL influence of their children. And I'm going to turn that into a meme because that is a great quote. That is a great quote. I'm going to turn that into a meme, and then when the trolls come and say, you spelled soul wrong, I'm going to go, did I? Did I? Did I? Right, it's better that my children share my beliefs, and not so much beliefs, yes, beliefs, but it's best that children share your values, your morality, right? Like, I come from a Christian worldview, so I educate my children within a Christian worldview. Now, someone who's a Muslim, right, it wouldn't be appropriate for them to educate their children with a Christian worldview. It would be appropriate for them to educate their children with an Islamic worldview, right? So you want your children to be raised with your worldview. I mean, if someone's an atheist, that's fine. And you want to educate your children within your worldview. You don't send them, right? Like, you know what I think is funny, an interesting paradigm? You'll always see atheists, and they'll be like, oh, an education should be atheist. They shouldn't teach Christianity in school, and you should send your children to these public schools that teach atheism. All right. But that would be the equivalent of me telling you, the atheist, oh no, you have to send your children to a Christian school, right? It's the same. It's just the foot on the opposite foot, right? No, you should educate your children with your values. www.classicallearner.com. Oh, those comments jump forward there. Thought I got to all of them and then just jumped forward. Whoa, okay. All right, I'll just keep answering. Wow, holy. I'm telling you to set up those wood shops all across America. Well, there's Little Bear wood shops in here, and if the future goes the way I'd like, I might even do a collaboration with someone like Little Bear Woodshop, possibly even himself, on something of that nature. So hopefully the cards fall into place, but that's something I would definitely like to look into in the future, where I actually have a teacher who works with our students on woodshop. The students within my private homeschool community this year are doing a year-long nature unit study. I haven't even brought that up this whole stream. They're doing a year-long nature unit study in which they're learning about mapping, geography, how to track the sun, how to track the stars. They're going to be gardening, harvesting their crops, and then actually they're going to be getting their first entrepreneurial experience. And one of the things I'll be doing is I'll actually be giving them an assignment which teaches them like basic woodwork over the course of the year. So our students throughout this nature study are going to be learning art, photography, videography, woodwork, gardening, so like real world skills that they could carry with them for the rest of their lives. But I'd like to take that a step further as I continue to grow out my platform and even start to offer classes where children are really learning the ins and outs of construction. And I am showing the members of my private community how to do that. Right now, we're doing that through, there's these great books I link to in my private homeschool community. They're like $10 on Amazon. Were great books which teach children as young as 5 years old how to do construction all the way up through high school, how to do advanced carpentry. But I'd like to actually start incorporating a class, but that's something that's down the pipe, or my wife, that's down the pike, the proper terminology. But that is something I'm building toward. Right now, we've built out the propaganda class, the year-long nature unit study in which children are getting their first entrepreneurial experience, and our studies into the media, medical, and military-industrial complexes. And I'm building this from the grassroots level. And the best part is, when you get in at $10 a month, I will never, ever raise the price on an existing member. Now, someone who joins a year from now, it might be $25 a month. Because as we build out these systems, as I bring in more teachers who provide more value, that price might go up, and it might help me fund things I need to fund. But if you get in at $10 a month, I never raise the price. And the reason I talk about these skills like woodshop is it only takes one skill to free a man. So if your child knows carpentry, actually a little woodshop bear he's a friend of mine, good friend of mine, and he's a great example. If you go to his page, you see he makes these beautiful mahogany and all these different these beautiful woods, these bowls, cutting boards, just absolutely immaculate work that he does. And he gets for those of you not familiar, he gets 500,000 views on all his videos. He gets more traction than I get on social media because people love his work. And his work, he can't make his bowls fast enough how quick people are buying them. But he has one skill, right? Well, if your child has one skill like that, whether it's carpentry, whether it's artwork, where your child could start out as a contractor on a site like Fiverr, they could build a portfolio from the time they're 14 or 15 years old. By the time they're 18 years old, they'll have a portfolio good enough where they could actually charge $300, $400, even $500 per book cover that authors hire. So authors would hire them to draw the illustrations for book covers. And there's illustrators with good portfolios who are getting $300, $400, $500 a pop just to do these book covers. How many $500 book covers do you have to do in 1 year to earn a good living, and live a very happy life that you're your boss and you're in complete control of your life? Which is why in my private, in my year-long nature unit study, one of the things we're focusing on is art. Our students are drawing out their properties. They're learning how to draw in 3 dimensions. They're learning how to do all this intricate artwork. And the reason for that is because art is such a powerful skill, not in just the things you can do in life with art, but also it's a great skill to get your children their first entrepreneurial experience. So, I mean, if they're good at art, you could have them design something cool, a design that they like. You could go onto a drop shipping site like printify.com, have them put their art design onto a t-shirt, and they never have to deal with inventory. They never have to deal with sales. You then show them how to create a website. They could do the art design for their own website, build up this website, put their shirts on the website, do some basic Facebook marketing, Instagram marketing. They can learn about marketing and sales. People place orders, and the Printify company will take the order, send out the t-shirt to the people that ordered the t-shirt, and send a check to your child, right? A commission to your child. So they're learning all these entrepreneurial things. This is unschooling, by the way, right? They're developing an entrepreneurial mindset. They're learning sales. They're learning marketing. They're learning how to take a product, take a service, bring it to marketing. By the way, anyone who wouldn't want to be a member of my private, it is beyond me, anyone who wouldn't pay $10 a month to be part of my community. Because when I inbox on my community with the people and we talk about their children, I'll inbox them. I'll say, this is what you should do with your child, and just keep inboxing me throughout the process, and I'll keep guiding you as to what you should do next. And then they guide their children, right? Anyone who wouldn't pay $10 a month for that is beyond me, which is why we've been growing so rapidly, and we're going to continue to grow. I mean, it's been so successful. I've really been blown away with our growth and how successful it's been, since I stopped teaching and started doing this full time, and it's really cool. So that's unschooling, and so it takes one skill to free a man. So that's why we teach. I always say the 3 primary objectives of your child's education are skill development, skill development. Let me start that over. The 3 primary objectives of your child's education are the process of learning and critical thinking over memorization, which is like how we study history, what we talked about. Skill development, construction, engineering, art, music, computer coding. And 420 Drya, El Mello, happy you guys are here. I love when I see the people that are members of, I call us the Unschoolables, so I love when the Unschoolables are here. So critical thinking, skill development, and entrepreneurial experience, and I call it the rule of 6. Your child should have something entrepreneurial embedded into their education every 6 months from the time they're 5 years old. And if they do that, they will have the mindset and the experience to do whatever they want to do as they grow up. Gymnastics during the day, a lot offer homeschool programs, absolutely. I don't like the schools. I spent too much time there. Little Bear Woodshop, crushing. Homeschool speaking truth. I would love to start an auto shop or a woodworking movement that just goes through the whole country. Well, you're in the right place because I'm starting it. It's already begun. I mean, I worked with a father who had an 8-year-old obsessed with cars. So I had him teach his 8-year-old how to change oil. He put a flyer, he made flyers up, put them on his neighbor's doorsteps, and some of his neighbors actually hired him to change their oil. The father, really cool that he did this. I didn't even suggest this. He did this on his own. Purchased a clunker, a car for under $1,000 that was just, trash. And he actually spent the next year fixing up that car with his 8-year-old and showing him, how cars really work. That child will always have the skills required to earn a living no matter where he goes in this world. No matter where he goes in this world, he will have the entrepreneurial knowledge and the actual skill set from being a mechanic. He'll always be all right in this world. I stay tapping the screen for you. I really enjoy your live, dang. Thank you so much. And every time you guys hit the like button, it signals to the algorithm that other people should be notified that we're doing this stream. So always appreciated. How can we begin to change things? That's what we're doing. The Call of the Wild and Free, absolutely, very good book for homeschool parents. The events of the last since March 2020 allowed you to start homeschooling. Absolutely. Great. I'm listening to everything you're saying. It's so true. I wanted to homeschool my kids. Just do it. Just take the leap. Go to hslda.org. They have the forms you need to withdraw your child from public school. When you withdraw, it's very important that you get the paperwork notarized so that you have a record that you filed all the paperwork, because sometimes the school districts play games and they're like, oh, we never got it. So get your paperwork notarized. This is not legal advice. I'm not a lawyer. Go to hslda.org. That stands for Homeschool Legal Defense Association. Everyone should support them. I have a membership to them. Everyone should, because they are the tip of the spear from protecting us against the people that want to subvert our ability to homeschool. And then use their website to familiarize yourself with the regulations in the state that you live, and then get really good at your record keeping. Very important. Very important. You do that, you'll be fine. Lincoln bent the knee. Yeah, I mean, most historical narratives that you teach are not. In fact, the Civil War wasn't fought over the reason they tell us it was fought over. That was not the driving force. It was economic protectionism was the primary disagreement between the North and the South. Just using primary sources without academic articles is quite a scantly technique of historians. So what you're referring to is you've been trained that history is determined by authority. But as I explained at the beginning of this stream, if you were here, the Carnegie Foundation, the Ford Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, they used their money to take over the American Historical Association. And the American Historical Association is the association in charge of all these academic articles, these peer-reviewed articles, right? So this authoritative history that you're taking as being the truth has actually been bought and paid for. And I know that goes against the way you were taught, but that's the truth. So again, listen and learn, or don't. It's up to you. You can think what you want. I really don't care. Lee and Grant led the armies. Right. Public school is not an authentic environment. It's like a prison. Absolutely. Let the kids play. You need secondary sources to understand context. That's true. I have no problem with your children also reading secondary sources, right? Like, secondary sources I love are Tragedy and Hope by Carol Quigley. Right? Every child should read Tragedy and Hope before they graduate high school. The Creature from Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffin. In fact, children should read everything G. Edward Griffin puts out, because he is probably the greatest historian of the 20th century, G. Edward Griffin. In fact, my book, The Bear from Jekyll Island, is based off of his work. You teach the real history of World War II. I try to teach the real history of everything. Right now, we're studying the propaganda class. We're studying the military-industrial complex, the medical-industrial complex, and the media-industrial complex. And I do plan on, as I get through those, building out more curriculums based on the world wars, all the wars, and actually starting to teach history classes as well. The way we study history in our private homeschool community is we find the primary documents that students should be working with so that they can study World War II and then draw their own conclusions. We do art with friends, absolutely. So I don't teach the classes on here. I have a private homeschool community. It's www.classicallearner.com. And when you go to classicallearner.com, you'll see Homeschools Connected. Click on Homeschools Connected, follow the link, use the promotion code TOGETHER. For $10 a month, you get access to the propaganda class that I teach, my study on the media industrial complex, the military industrial complex, the medical industrial complex, my year-long nature study in which children get their first entrepreneurial experience, myself, the members of my community, my state groups, which we have groups for each state. So parents in the state of Ohio can talk with other parents in the state of Ohio and potentially meet up if possible. And all of my research into resources available, including many free resources that are available for members of the homeschool community. Yes, Mrs. Classical Learner is my wife, and she is amazing. Oh, by the way, I haven't mentioned because I didn't want to announce it too soon, but my wife is an acupuncturist. She is a doctor of traditional Chinese medicine, and she has actually been putting together a class, which she will be teaching, that will be the foundations of traditional Chinese medicine. So later this year, she will be teaching that class for members of the community. Fundraiser, starter woodshop series, how to create one for home. Hey, that works for me. I mean, I would love that. But either way, I'm building from the grassroots level. So as I build out, all of this stuff's going to happen. Right now, what we already have is incredible, and the value that our customers, our members, our community is receiving is well beyond $10 a month. But let me tell you something. Where this is going, the value that we will be able to provide within the next 2 to 3 years will probably be worth legitimately, in terms of what people pay for school tuitions, will be worth probably $5,000 a semester, and I'm still only going to charge at most a small monthly fee because I don't ever want to do that. I don't want to put education behind a paywall. I want to revolutionize the way people educate their children, and I want to give it to the masses so that everyone could afford it for the price of a Netflix subscription. And the reason I want to do that is because the more good people, the more intelligent, critical thinkers who are capable of living independently and free, who understand their rights and understand propaganda that there are, the better country this will be for my children to grow up in. And my children need allies in this world, because for anyone that's been paying attention, they have been very much coming after our rights. They have very much been coming after basic human decency. And we need to come together as a people, and we need to educate the next generation so that they are equipped to protect themselves, and they can take what I'm building and they can take it to levels that even I do consider myself a visionary, and I have no qualm saying that, but they can take it to levels that even I myself can't imagine yet. So freedom isn't free. That's why I end every stream, I say freedom isn't free, we have to earn it every day. We will earn it. If you tap my Q, it puts your site up at the bottom on a banner. I would be interested in doing that. How do I do that? So, all right, guys, I think I'll call it a stream on that. So www.classicallearner.com. Again, Homeschools Connected. Follow the link. And it is $10 a month with the promotion code TOGETHER. That's all lowercase, promotion code TOGETHER. $10 a month, and I never raise the price. When you sign up for my community, Sometime later today, if not tomorrow, I will inbox you within the community, and I'll open up a line of communication between you and myself. And that line of communication is always open, and I'm more than happy to help you with anything, because if you're in my community, you're my priority. So freedom isn't free. We have to earn it every day, and I will undoubtedly be back tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern to earn it. God bless. The community is at www.classicallearner.com. Again, that's Homeschools Connected. Someone just asked right before I signed off. That's Homeschools Connected. $10 a month. Use the promotion code TOGETHER, all lowercase. And again, I never raise the price. And you don't have to pay. It's not like I don't make you pay for a year up front. So if you don't like it, you're literally, you could cancel after a month and you're out $10. Nobody does that. Freedom isn't free. We have to earn it every day. I will be back tomorrow, 12 noon Eastern, to earn it. God bless.